Grace ran as fast as her legs could carry her, her breath tearing through her lungs as the wet pavement slapped beneath her shoes. She didn't know who was chasing her or why the black SUV kept circling back, but the fear curling hot in her stomach made her sprint harder. "Stop," a voice shouted behind her. She didn't dare look. She ducked into an alley beside the shuttered laundromat, pressing her shaking body against the wall as footsteps thundered past. Her heart pounded loud enough to echo in her ears, drowning out everything except one question. Why did Beatrice send her out tonight? Why did her stepmother insist she meet the strangers at the club? And why had the world tilted and spun after that single sip of wine? She pressed her palm to her forehead. Everything felt blurry, too blurry to be normal. Her vision flickered at the edges, and she stumbled out of the alley, grabbing the side of a dumpster for balance. She didn't drink. Ever. She knew the taste of something spiked, because her body was reacting violently. Her heartbeat was too fast, her knees too weak, her thoughts too scrambled. She whispered to herself, "What did you do to me, Beatrice?" The rain had softened into a mist as she staggered onto the sidewalk of Hollow Creek, Atlanta's forgotten corner. Houses sagged like tired shoulders, neon signs buzzed with half-dead light, and windows were barricaded more often than they were cleaned. Grace had lived here for years, stitching torn clothes for neighbors just to survive. Her stepmother's debts were endless, and her own dreams felt like scraps she never had time to patch together. As she pushed forward, headlights flared behind her, sweeping across the cracked road. The black SUV rolled forward slowly like a predator stalking weak prey. Panic shot through her chest. She tried to run, but her legs buckled. She hit the ground hard. A moment later, the SUV door opened and someone stepped out, tall, dressed in a dark coat, moving with controlled intensity. "Grace?" His voice wasn't rough or threatening. It was low, steady, unexpectedly calm. But she didn't trust calm. She crawled backwards on trembling palms. "Don't touch me. Don't come near me." He stopped several feet away. Rain slid from his coat in thin streams. The streetlights carved out the sharp planes of his face, strong jaw, piercing eyes, dark brows furrowed in concern. "You're not safe out here," he said. "You're not thinking clearly." She laughed, hysterical. "Oh, and you think I should go with a stranger in a black SUV at night? Do you think I'm stupid?" "No," he answered without hesitation. "But you're in danger, and I'm trying to stop it." His sincerity almost rattled her, but fear clung too tightly. She forced herself upright, wobbling. "Why are you looking for me? Who sent you?" "Beatrice," he said. The name nearly knocked the air from her lungs. Her stepmother who owed money to dangerous men. Her stepmother who said Grace needed to help out for once tonight. Grace shook her head violently. "She sold me to you, didn't she? You're the buyer." His jaw tightened. He stepped closer, voice firmer. "She tried to make a deal. I intervened, but listen." "No," Grace screamed, backing away as her vision blurred. "I'm not going anywhere with you." But her body betrayed her. Her head spun, her knees folded. She felt herself falling, and strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. "Let me go," she whispered weakly, trying to fight him. "Please." His voice softened. "Grace, you're drugged. You need help. I'm taking you somewhere safe." "Who are you?" she slurred. "My name is Ethan." She tried to memorize it so she could tell the police. Tell someone. But darkness swallowed her before she could say another word. When she woke, warm light pooled over her face. She blinked hard. Her surroundings didn't make sense. A room stretched out before her, clean, modern, soft white walls, polished floors, a wide window overlooking a forest drenched in morning sunlight. Not the type of place kidnappers kept victims. But she wasn't safe. Not yet. She jerked upright, grabbing the edge of the bed. Footsteps approached, slow and measured, and Ethan entered the room holding a mug. He stopped at the doorway when she flinched. "You're awake," he said quietly. "How do you feel?" "Where am I?" Her voice cracked. "Cedar Hills," he answered. "My estate." Her stomach dropped. "Estate? So it was a purchase. You bought me. You actually bought me." "No," Ethan said sharply. Too sharply. He set the mug on the table and looked at her with an intensity that felt like a storm pressing against glass. "I paid off your stepmother's debt to stop the men she owed from taking you. If I hadn't stepped in, you wouldn't have made it to morning." She swallowed hard. "Why would you help me?" Ethan hesitated. "Because someone has to. And because I know what it's like to be trapped by someone else's mistakes. She stared at him, trying to read the shadows in his eyes. They were deep, haunted, but that didn't mean she could trust him. I want to leave, she said. Now. You can, he replied. No hesitation, no bargaining, but not until the drug wears off and the people looking for you are taken care of. He paused. You're not a prisoner. You're protected. Her breath shook. Protected. A foreign word. A knock sounded, and a woman entered with a tray of food. Her eyes flicked to Grace with something sharp in them. Curiosity? Jealousy? Something darker? Grace couldn't tell. Ethan dismissed her, and when the woman left, he turned back. Eat something. You need your strength. I'm not eating until I know what you want from me, Grace whispered. Ethan exhaled. Fair enough. I want nothing from you. Not a contract. Not obedience. Not anything. His voice lowered. Your stepmother didn't sell you to me. She tried. I made sure she won't try again. Grace didn't know if she believed him, but the tremor in his voice didn't sound like a lie. He started to leave, then paused at the door. When you're ready, we'll talk more. You're safe here, Grace, whether you believe it or not. He walked out, and the door clicked softly behind him. Grace buried her face in her hands. She didn't feel safe. She didn't feel anything but fear and confusion, but as she replayed the night before, one detail stood out. Ethan could have hurt her. He didn't. He could have locked her in. He didn't. He could have lied, but his eyes didn't look like a liar's. Still, she needed answers. And if she was going to escape this mess, she needed to understand the man who suddenly held the power to either protect her or destroy her life. She stood, legs still a little shaky, and walked toward the door. Whatever Ethan wanted to tell her, she was ready to hear it. For now. Grace stepped into the hallway cautiously, half expecting guards or locked doors. Instead, she found a high-ceiling corridor with soft lighting and abstract paintings of storms and oceans. Everything looked expensive. Too expensive for someone who claimed he wanted nothing from her. She followed the faint murmur of voices until she reached the end of the hall. There, in a glass-walled office, Ethan stood speaking with someone over the phone. His tone was clipped, controlled, yet threaded with irritation. I don't care how many times she slipped through before, he said. Beatrice isn't going to run this time. Find her. She knew exactly what she was doing. Grace froze. Her stepmother's name sliced through her chest. Beatrice? Running, being hunted. Ethan turned slightly, spotting her through the glass. His jaw softened instantly, his voice lowering. I'll call you back. He ended the call and stepped out of the office, his eyes scanning her face. You shouldn't be walking around yet. She folded her arms tightly. Are you tracking my stepmother? Yes. Why? She demanded. What do you gain by chasing her? Justice, he said, and prevention. She'll do this to someone else if she's not stopped. And it has nothing to do with me? She shot back. His lips parted, just barely, but he didn't answer immediately, which meant she had touched something he didn't want to say out loud. Before she could push further, the same woman from earlier, Claire, appeared behind Ethan carrying a stack of files. Her gaze flicked toward Grace again with thinly veiled dislike. Your meeting with the development board is in an hour, Claire said. Should I move it? No, Ethan replied, eyes still on Grace. I'll be ready. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly, as if offended by his attention lingering elsewhere. Grace took a breath. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why was I drugged? Her voice cracked on the question. Why did Beatrice do that to me? Ethan's expression darkened with a quiet rage that seemed too controlled to be normal. He gestured toward a side room. Come with me. You should sit. Grace stayed standing anyway as he closed the door behind them. She owed money, Ethan said. A lot of it. To people who don't care about legal boundaries. They don't negotiate. They collect. He paused, studying her reaction. They wanted her to offer something valuable, and she offered you. Grace's stomach twisted so tightly she thought she would be sick. But you stepped in, she whispered. Why? Because I was already there, Ethan said simply. Because I overheard what she planned, and because I don't stand by and watch things like that happen. That doesn't make sense, she said, shaking her head. People don't just swoop in to save strangers. Ethan leaned against the table, his voice quieter. People like me do. Or at least, people like me try. There was a heaviness behind it, a history, something broken. Grace needed answers, but her mind felt tangled with fear, disbelief, and a strange flicker of relief she didn't want to feel. She swallowed hard. I still want to leave. I told you, when it's safe. And who decides safety? She shot back. You do, he said softly. I'm not keeping you here, Grace. Yet even as he said it, she could tell part of him wanted her to stay longer, for reasons she didn't understand yet. A sudden buzz echoed from the hallway. A security alert panel lit up near the door. Ethan stiffened. Stay here. He moved toward the hallway quickly, and Grace, ignoring every instinct telling her to sit still, followed him. 2 security guards were gathered around the panel. One spoke urgently. Mr. Caldwell, we have a situation at the main gate. Who is it? Ethan demanded. A woman claiming to be Grace's stepmother, the guard said. She's screaming your name and demanding money. Grace's blood ran cold. Beatrice, here, now. Before Ethan could turn her away, Grace shoved past the guards and ran toward the surveillance screen. The footage showed Beatrice pounding on the iron gate, mascara smeared, hair wild, shouting like a possessed woman. Grace, let me in! Let me in right now! You owe me! You owe me everything! Grace's breath hitched. She didn't owe that woman anything. Nothing. And yet, hearing her voice triggered every fear she had tried to bury. Ethan turned to Grace, his voice low but firm. You don't have to see her. But she couldn't look away. Beatrice screamed again, her voice cracking. You think you can hide? You think you can just disappear? You better come out here or I swear. Ethan snapped his fingers toward security. Remove her from the gate. File a restraining order. She doesn't get within 2 miles of this property. Grace grabbed his arm. Ethan, stop. Don't call the police yet. He paused, stunned by the contact. Her hand dropped immediately, heat rushing to her cheeks. I want to hear what she says. Just once. Grace, I need to hear it, she insisted, her voice trembling. I need to know if she ever cared about me, or if I was just something she could trade. Ethan clenched his jaw but nodded once. Fine, but I'm coming with you. By the time they reached the gate, Beatrice had bruised her hand from slamming it. Her eyes widened when she saw Grace step forward behind Ethan. There you are! Beatrice shrieked. My goodness, baby, I've been so worried. Stop lying, Grace said, her voice breaking even though she stood tall. Why did you do it? Beatrice blinked, offended. Do what? Grace, sweetheart, you're confused. This man has twisted. Why did you sell me? Grace shouted. Beatrice's face drained, then contorted with blame. I had no choice. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to deal with those men? You owe me, Grace. I raised you. I fed you. You used me, Grace whispered. Every chance you got. Beatrice slammed her palms against the gate. You ungrateful little... Ethan stepped forward so sharply that even Beatrice flinched. That's enough. Who do you think you are? Beatrice spat. You think money makes you powerful? You think you can steal my daughter and act righteous? She isn't your property, Ethan growled, and she isn't going anywhere with you. Beatrice laughed coldly. Oh, that's where you're wrong, Mr. Big Shot, because she still belongs to. Finish that sentence, Ethan warned, and you won't like the consequences. Grace felt her pulse racing, her chest tightening. Beatrice wasn't just cruel, she was delusional. Grace, Beatrice hissed, you come home with me right now, or I swear I will ruin. Security stepped in before she could finish, dragging her away as she screamed threats into the morning air. When the gate finally shut, Grace's body trembled uncontrollably. Ethan turned to her immediately. She can't hurt you anymore, he said. Grace's voice was barely audible. You don't know, Beatrice. His eyes softened. Then let me learn. Let me help. For the first time, Grace didn't pull away. Not because she trusted him, but because for the first time, she wasn't facing Beatrice alone. Grace didn't realize she was shaking until Ethan placed a careful hand on her back, not touching her too much, not crowding her, just steady enough to keep her from collapsing. Come inside, he said gently. You need to breathe. She let him guide her a few steps before stopping abruptly. She's going to try again, Grace whispered. Beatrice doesn't quit. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't back down. If she thinks she can get money or use me as leverage, she'll keep coming. Ethan studied her, really studied her, with eyes that weren't just concerned. They were calculating, protective, dangerous, but not in a way that frightened her. Dangerous in a way that made her feel shielded for the first time in her life. You're right, he said. She will try again, which is why we'll be ready before she does. Grace stared at him, speechless. Why do you care so much? Why are you doing all of this? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a breath like he was debating how much to reveal. Because I've seen what happens when people like her win, he finally said, and I'm done watching it happen. It wasn't the answer she expected, but it was honest, raw, almost painful. Back inside the mansion, Grace sat on the couch while Ethan kneeled in front of the security panel, issuing orders. Claire hovered near the doorway, glaring at Grace like she was a stain someone had forgotten to scrub. When Ethan finished, he turned back to Grace. Are you okay? No, she answered, but I'm trying. Claire's voice cut in sharply. Do you need anything? I can bring tea, or... I'm fine, Grace said quietly. Claire smiled tightly. If you say so. Something about her tone made Grace's skin prickle. Claire didn't just dislike her, she hated her. For what reason, Grace didn't know, but the sharp glint in her eyes warned her to be very careful around the woman. Ethan must have noticed Claire's sudden tension too. He dismissed her with a simple, "You can go." Claire left, but not without one last piercing look. Grace released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. I don't think she likes me very much. Ethan huffed a humorless laugh. Claire doesn't like anyone, not even me. Grace raised an eyebrow. She definitely likes you a little. He paused. That's unfortunate. Grace blinked. Unfortunate? She's been working here for 2 years and believes loyalty means entitlement, Ethan said. I've made it clear that's not how things work, but she doesn't listen. His gaze drifted toward the hallway Claire had disappeared into. Be careful around her. Grace wasn't sure if he meant emotionally or physically, but the warning sat heavy on her chest. After a moment, Ethan stood. Do you want to see something? Grace hesitated. What is it? Just come with me. Against her better judgment, she followed him down a long hallway lined with windows overlooking the trees. They reached a large room she hadn't noticed earlier. When Ethan opened the door, her breath caught. Inside was a grand piano, gleaming under a skylight. Sheet music covered the stand, and the room smelled faintly of cedar and old books. Grace stepped inside slowly, her fingers brushing the smooth edge of the piano. It's beautiful. I thought you might like it, Ethan said. Claire mentioned you used to play. Grace froze. Claire told you that? He nodded. She said she heard you humming notes when you were walking earlier. Grace's heart fluttered in her chest. I haven't played since my dad died. Ethan's posture softened. I'm sorry. She touched the keys softly, feeling the old muscle memory flicker awake in her fingertips. He taught me everything. We used to play duets when I was little. But after he died, Beatrice sold the piano. Ethan's jaw tightened. Of course she did. Grace sat on the bench, staring at the keys with a mix of fear and longing. I don't know if I can still do it. You can, Ethan said. Some things stay with you. She hesitated, then pressed a soft chord. The note rang out clear and pure, filling the room like it had been starving for sound. Grace's throat tightened. She played again and again. Then, almost without thinking, she let a small melody slip from her fingers. Something familiar. Something she thought she'd forgotten. When she finally lifted her hands from the keys, tears blurred her vision. Ethan stood beside the piano, watching her with a gentle expression she had never seen on anyone before. You're remarkable, he said quietly. Grace wiped her eyes quickly. No, I'm just trying to get through the day. That's what makes you remarkable. His words settled deep in her chest, right where she didn't want anything from him to settle. The next morning, Grace woke with a little more clarity, though the weight of everything still pressed down on her shoulders. When she stepped out of her room, she found Claire dusting the hallway table. Claire didn't look up. Comfortable night, I assume. Grace kept her voice neutral. It was fine. Claire flicked a speck off the table. You know, girls come and go through this house sometimes. Ethan gets emotional, feels sorry for them. Her smirk sharpened. But once they're better, they leave, and he forgets them. Grace swallowed. Is that supposed to comfort me or scare me? Neither, Claire said sweetly. Just preparing you. Don't mistake his attention for something special. Grace didn't respond. She simply walked away. But inside, Claire's words dug like thorns. Later that afternoon, as Grace walked past Ethan's office, she overheard Claire speaking to him again, this time in a tone dripping with sweetness. I'm worried about her, Claire said. She's fragile, and a little manipulative. I think she's already trying to get close to you." Ethan didn't answer. "I'm only saying this because I care about you," Claire continued softly. "You're too trusting. You let broken people in too easily." Something slammed Ethan's chair. "Claire," his voice was cold steel, "whatever issues you have with Grace, keep them out of my decisions, and stay out of her way." Claire stormed out, eyes burning with fury. Grace ducked behind the wall before Claire could spot her. Inside the office, Ethan sighed heavily. Grace stepped forward, unsure whether to knock or leave him alone, but something in her pushed her forward. She knocked lightly. "Come in." Ethan looked up as she entered. "Grace? Everything okay?" She hesitated. "I overheard Claire." His shoulders tensed. "Ignore her." "But she's right about one thing." Grace took a breath. "I don't want to be another person you feel sorry for." His eyes softened. "I don't feel sorry for you." "Then what do you feel?" she whispered. He didn't step closer. He didn't reach for her, but the answer in his voice felt dangerously close. "Protective," he said, "and increasingly angry at the world that hurt you." Grace's breath hitched. "No one's ever been protective of me," she said. Ethan's gaze locked onto hers, intense enough to make her heart pound. "You have someone now," he said. For the first time, Grace didn't look away. Not because she trusted him, but because something inside her whispered that maybe, just maybe, he meant it. That night, the storm came. The sky cracked open with thunder, and rain hammered the mansion's windows so loudly, Grace felt each vibration in her ribs. She tried to read, tried to sleep, tried to distract herself. But her mind kept circling the same fear. Beatrice wasn't finished, and neither, apparently, was Claire. At midnight, a soft creak outside her room made Grace sit upright. When she opened the door a sliver, she saw Claire walking down the hallway with a phone pressed to her ear, her voice low, urgent. "No, listen," Claire hissed. "You don't understand. She shouldn't be here. She's ruining everything. If you want what we discussed, you need to come back." Grace froze. Claire wasn't calling a friend. Her tone was too sharp, too deliberate. A chill ran down Grace's spine. Was she talking to Beatrice? A thunderclap masked the next few words. Grace strained to hear, but the storm swallowed the rest of Claire's whisper. She shut her door quietly and leaned against it, her heart racing. She had to warn Ethan. Before she could talk herself out of it, she slipped down the hall and knocked on his door. He opened almost instantly, fully awake, as if he hadn't been sleeping at all. "Grace?" His eyes scanned her face. "What's wrong?" She lowered her voice. "Claire, she's planning something. I heard her on the phone. She sounded like she was talking to my mother or someone helping her." Ethan's jaw went rigid. "Come inside." She stepped in, and he shut the door behind her. "Tell me exactly what you heard." Grace repeated the fragments, and Ethan's expression grew darker with each word. "I knew Claire was becoming a problem," he said quietly. "But this," his fists clenched, "you shouldn't have to deal with any more betrayal." Grace swallowed. "What are you going to do?" "I'll handle Claire," he said, "and I'll increase security at every entrance. No one gets near you without going through me." Grace stared at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing so much for someone you barely know?" Ethan met her gaze without flinching. "Because I don't measure people by how long I've known them." A beat. "I measure them by what I see in them." Her breath caught. "What do you see in me?" He stepped closer, slowly giving her space to move away if she wanted. She didn't. "I see someone trying to rebuild her entire world from the rubble someone else created. I see someone brave enough to keep going when she's terrified." Grace's throat tightened. "And I see someone I want to protect," he added, voice softer, "even if you never feel anything for me." Something warm and unfamiliar flickered inside her chest. Not dependence, not fear, but something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. For the first time since she arrived, she allowed herself to exhale fully. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded once. "Try to sleep. I'll be awake for the rest of the night." Grace turned to leave, but paused. You'll tell me if anything changes? Always." When she stepped back into the hallway, the storm felt less suffocating. Maybe because there was someone standing between her and the darkness for once. The next morning, Grace found Ethan in the kitchen, speaking quietly with one of the guards. Claire was nowhere to be seen. When Ethan noticed her, he dismissed the guard and walked toward her with a calm she didn't completely trust. "Claire's been relieved of her duties," he said. Grace blinked. Fired? Yes, she left the property an hour ago. Grace exhaled shakily, unsure whether to feel relieved or guilty. She didn't deny the call, Ethan added. And she was in contact with someone using a restricted line near the property border. I'm having my team trace it now. Grace pressed a hand to her temple. She really did contact someone. And we're going to find out who. Ethan paused. But this doesn't fall on you. Claire made her own choices. Grace nodded slowly. Thank you for believing me. Always, he said quietly. Later that afternoon, Grace sat in the music room again, trying to calm her thoughts at the piano. She played softly, letting the notes fill the stillness. For a moment, the world felt balanced, manageable. Then the door opened. She turned, expecting Ethan, but her breath froze in her lungs. Beatrice stood in the doorway, soaked from the rain, eyes burning with triumph. Well, Beatrice said, smiling like a blade. This is quite the upgrade from the riverbank, isn't it? Grace's pulse exploded. How did you get in? Funny thing, Beatrice replied, stepping further into the room. Your friend Claire may have been dismissed, but she still had a spare access card, and she gave it to me last night. Grace felt sick. Don't come any closer. But Beatrice ignored her. You think you belong here? With rich carpets and marble floors? With a man like him? She scoffed. Men like Ethan don't save girls like you. They use you until you're no longer entertaining. That's not true, Grace said, voice trembling. No? Beatrice smiled cruelly. Then ask him where his last charity case is. Grace flinched, but Beatrice kept advancing. You owe me, Beatrice hissed, and you will pay what you owe, or I'll make sure Ethan regrets ever letting you through his gates. The threat snapped something inside Grace. No, she whispered. Beatrice blinked. What did you say? I said no. I'm done being afraid of you. Beatrice's face twisted with fury. You ungrateful little. A voice behind her thundered through the room. Step away from her. Ethan stood in the doorway, eyes cold, posture coiled, every inch of him radiating. Beatrice stiffened. Mr. Hale, this is a misunderstanding. You broke into my home, Ethan said, stepping forward with lethal calm. You threatened someone under my protection. Consider this your final warning. Beatrice opened her mouth to argue, but the guards appeared behind Ethan, her face drained of color. You can't do this, she shrieked as they approached. She's my daughter. That, Ethan said, explains everything. The guards escorted her out despite her kicking and screaming, her voice echoing down the hall until the front doors slammed shut. Grace stood frozen, eyes wide, breath shaking. Ethan rushed to her. Are you hurt? She shook her head. Grace. His voice was gentle now. Look at me. She lifted her gaze to his, and the moment their eyes met, something in her cracked, not out of fear, but from the sheer relief of being defended, finally by someone who didn't want anything in return. Without thinking, she stepped forward and pressed her forehead to his chest. Ethan froze for a moment, then his hand came up slowly, resting between her shoulder blades. You're safe now, he murmured. I promise. Grace closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she believed someone when they said that. If you enjoyed this story, comment your favorite moment below, and hit that subscribe button to continue the story. Your support keeps this amazing stories coming. Thanks for watching.